welcome back to In the Spotlight with Heart for ENC. My name is Sunji Maddox. I serve as the Impact and Outreach Coordinator with Heart for ENC. And for our third episode, we have a couple friends gathered today. We have Brandon Lamb, who serves with Versademics. We have Sandy Williams, a grant writer who's killing it in the nonprofit world in space. And then we have an executive director with us as well from Koinonia Community Solutions. So super glad and thankful to have y'all here. And we're just going to have a conversation and share a little bit about what you guys are doing in your organizations and maybe even some ways that you guys have stepped into collaboration. So as we kick off our time, if you would just again, share us who you are, the nonprofit you work with, and the work that you do.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Start with
Oh yeah.
Well, good morning, everyone. I am Watsi Sutton, Executive Director at Koinonia Community Solutions. So thank you for this invitation. I am excited to be here among friends, and it's great meeting you, Asunji. Let me just say, first of all, Heart for ENC is just an incredible organization, has been an incredible blessing to our organization, particularly being outside of the nonprofit space. I started as a trial attorney of over 26 years, and just really having this desire to do work in collective impact. And coming into that space in the Koinonia Community Solutions nonprofit, one of the first resources that I was really able to take advantage of and participate in the executive directors cohort and some of the additional trainings that Heart for ENC has offered over the years has been a real blessing. So I wanted to make sure to make that point. But certainly, Koinonia Community Solutions has been my privilege to be its first executive director for the last 5 years. We work across some various nonprofit spaces, after school and youth leadership interventions. We serve about 220 students in grades K through 8 across 2 counties, about 15 schools or so. So we work in Martin County and Pitt, and in after-school programming, and that's been just a real opportunity to help shape future leaders and really to assist underserved students who may struggle with academics, to really provide them that additional academic intervention, as well as to really help build their confidence and assist them with resiliency skills and social emotional learning opportunities, as well as exposure. If you can see it, you can believe it, and so that is a big part of all of our programming through our Kids Excel, which is our K through 5 programming, our Strong Her middle school girls program, and our Max Factor male youth leadership development. And so that's sort of how we know Brandon and how we know Sandy. And as well as we work in the reentry and second chance workforce development space. We believe in removing barriers. One of our niche at Koinonia Community Solutions is that we believe everybody should have an opportunity to just reach their full potential. And whether that's removing barriers, whether that's working in spaces that are underserved, that's the hallmark of what we do. So in reentry, we serve individuals. We actually erected the first local reentry council in Beaufort Hyde, Martin, Terrell, Washington County, what's known as the 2nd Judicial District. There were not reentry services, formal comprehensive reentry services in that area. And so for the last year and a half, almost 2 years, we have been working to erect those services, which is crucial resources for individuals who are coming out of either local detention or incarceration, or just having a difficult time navigating the consequences of criminal convictions. And in addition, we also have an exciting new program, PIT Pathways to Opioid Recovery, that is starting now here. Thankful for Pitt County's opioid settlement funding. We are erecting a housing and employment stabilization support program with reentry supports for individuals who are recovering from opioid disorder. So we're super excited about that. And through our Koinonia Community Housing effort, we develop affordable housing. So that has been also a labor of love to work with the Koinonia Community Center, Koinonia Christian Center Church, our founding organization, to develop 42 townhomes that we've been able to promote affordable home ownership in collaboration with the city and state resources, as well as offer more affordable rental opportunities. So that's what we're up to.
Amazing, amazing.
Well, I'm Sandy Williams. I have worked in the nonprofit space for about 15 years, and over the last 2 years, I started a business, grant writing. So I have about 10 organizations that I write grants for. So mine's a lot shorter than yours.
I have always put a foot in my mouth every time I had a mic, so I'm gonna try to talk slowly. But I'm actually gonna highlight a little bit more of Sandy's work because she's underselling herself. I've always told Sandy that she's not just a grant writer; she's a visionary, and she's worked really closely with these organizations to be a strategic thought partner and helping to push our work forward in ways that we don't always anticipate, and it's not always within the grant framework. So we really appreciate Sandy being here today, and Watsi, and Sanji. So thank you so much for putting us all together. Some of my favorite people in the nonprofit world. So you guys know me, I'm Brandon, and I've been in education for 10 years, and I've only been in the nonprofit space for 6 years. And this last year and a half, ever since meeting Sid, who introduced me to both Watsi, I met Watsi while touring the facility with Sid, and Sid introduced me to Sandy. I really feel like this last year and a half, as we've really leaned into collaboration, has been a huge accelerant for our organization. So we are in the youth education space, K-12 education, and with a specific emphasis on elementary education. I would say and argue that our strength is literacy development. That's what we know that we can impact to the greatest extent. But we try to transform scholars in all the ways that we believe matters. We have spiritual formation, character formation, to Watsi's point, are really important to making sure that our students are resilient when they are encountering situations in the classroom and at home or with their peers. And we also just try to enrich the children's lives at Versademics. They're exposed to chess, music, art. We really believe in a holistic enrichment experience and an extended day learning environment where our kids are really strengthening their academics. But going back to where we were with a year and a half ago as a smaller nonprofit organization trying to become a KCS or something like that, it was a trying time for us. And so leaning into what we knew had to be community partnerships, which Sid really advocated for at the time, really elevated us to the next level. So now that we had the way paid for us, with Watsi being, one thing I know about Watsi is out of the many opportunities that she is securing, Launch Carolina was a big one for us. She's kind of paving the way, and we're seeing her where she's trailblazing and just trying to follow in that. And there's so many great nonprofit leaders in the space that we are trying to chase after and help them guide us. And I think that has really allowed us to elevate our work and impact this past year and a half. Sandy, you can't take that right now. And it really has elevated us this last year and a half. I'd be remiss not to mention Dr. Moore at Bethel Youth Center. He has really opened the way for a lot of collaborative energy in this space across the nonprofit education sector. Has really took me under his wing and guided me and mentored me, and I'm just so grateful for all of these more experienced nonprofit leaders and education leaders who've really helped Versademics to blossom in this past year. So I'm just excited to be here, excited to not put my foot in my mouth, hopefully, and let's pass it to Sanji to take it away.
So we have, I'm hearing a diverse, panel right here. We have somebody who's been in almost 2 years now with Versademics, but has previous experience in education.
Yeah.
And is it about 2? How many years?
Six.
Oh, forgive me.
Right,
I heard the year and a half, and I'm just getting going. I'm the newest.
Yeah, you
sitting
guys-
here.
you
Look,
guys,
I'm the
yeah.
new one. In
You're
the
doing a
group.
great job.
Oh, appreciate that.
Absolutely,
Thank you.
yeah.
But nonetheless, in terms of cause, in terms of mission and vision, you have re-entry, and I know that's not the only thing you mentioned that you guys do. You have, focusing on the youth here with programming, and then you also have grant writing, the grant writing genius to kind of help in this conversation as we talk through some things. And one of the things I would love to talk about is collaboration. So, Watsi, a question I would love for you to jump on for us is, why is it so important for nonprofit organizations to consider collaboration?
Sanji, that is an excellent question. And in your lead-in, I think you nailed it in saying you're talking about the diversity in the room. And I think that is the key. There are so many diverse, not just thoughts, but backgrounds, experiences, certainly here today, but just in the nonprofit space. I come at this work from the perspective of a trial attorney. Brandon's had, years of work in the classroom. Sandy comes at this, from the creative space, the creator space, but thinking about, how do we fund all of this work and how do we get this done? And all of that matters. What we have found at Koinonia Community Solutions, one of the ways that we've been able to really grow almost vertically is through valuing collaborations and recognizing that it's not just what I bring to the table or my staff brings to the table or our team, it's what, another organization or another community or some, other community partner may bring to the space. I think that particularly in the environment in which we work now as nonprofits, where resources are limited, funding priorities have shifted in many directions, we really have to, we're almost constrained in a way to think about how we can better work together. And I think one of the things that Heart for ENC teaches so well is, hey, collaboration is not a scary thing. I mean, in addition to making friends and getting to know great people, that also sparks just those natural conversations, spark ideas about how we might work together or how might, my perspective or, particular strength that, my organization might have, how might, we join that with what, Brandon's organization does well. For instance, the after-school collaboration, which is taking place. I haven't had the pleasure of sitting in, but our education director, Tara Poe, has. And I've, had a chance to kind of pop in on, some collaborative sessions between she and Brandon and thinking about, well, we may work well with middle school students and on that social emotional piece, but hey, how can we take from and learn from Brandon what he does really well in the literacy development space. So I really think that collaboration is really the key to collective impact ultimately. What we're even though we may have we come at this from different lanes, we may have different areas of the nonprofit space that we serve, but ultimately we're after all the same goal. And it's really in what, the joint, all of the pieces and the members and what the joint supply that ultimately make us better. And so we have had lots of, great experiences around that. We've had some challenging experiences around that, to be honest. But what I found in my 5 or 6 years, close to 6 years being at Koinonia Community Solutions, is that we are generally made better when we are able to add, take from what we do well, perhaps take from what we don't do as well, recognizing, being really honest about that too. Where are our strengths, but where do we have, areas where we've got challenges? Let's go and find the folks who do that well, because ultimately it better serves all of the children that we serve, and from the after school perspective, it enriches our programming, because we can't do everything well. We can't serve all of the children and all of the families that need to be served and who have a need for various services. So I have just found collaboration to be not only enriching from a personal perspective and getting to know great people and just having that diversity of ideas, but also it has really helped us to grow in a way that folks don't often think about. Sometimes we think about, well, we're competing for dollars, or, I don't want to work with that organization because maybe, they'll have a edge that we don't have if we, join together. And I found it to be just the opposite. It has been not only enriching, but it has been, I think, a real factor in our growth.
Oh, I love that. I love that. It makes me think about how when you lean into collaboration, there's going to be certain outcomes that are going to be able to probably directly help and serve, if it's the youth or reentry individuals, but it also does something to you. There's a humbling posture, you know, you kind of have to take. You know, you have to be able to listen, even though leaders, you know, we have to lead with your voice at times. But yeah, I love that. I love that. Just the many ways you begin to see how collaboration surprises you, challenges you, and even blesses you in some ways to grow in humility as a leader. But my next question is going to be for Brandon.
Sure.
Right off the heels of similar to what I just asked Watsi.
Yeah.
What have been some specific ways that you've seen collaboration bring value to you and Versademics?
Oh yeah. There's a lot of value, and I think I kind of alluded to that opening to this past year and a half, where the first nonprofit that we really looked closely with was Heart for E&C, and Heart for E&C connected us to so many other thought leaders in this space, and kind of to Watsi's point, I think there is the misconception at times that nonprofits are competing, but we do have to understand that there are thousands of nonprofits. For me not to work with Watsi doesn't make sense when there's really thousands of other nonprofits. Even if we're just talking about the Carolinas that I'm going to be quote unquote competing against. And when I have someone who would be a neighbor to me and a friend to me, like Watsi and Tara have been, it doesn't make sense for us to view each other in that light. It's not healthy. That it's really like thinking of your neighbor competing with you about who's going to get out of the neighborhood first. Or there's so many other things that you have to think about on a day-to-day basis than to make your neighbor your enemy. So I really thought that was a really good point that I wanted to mention. But going back to Heart for E&C, connecting us to other nonprofit leaders, I remember my mentor now, Sid Bratcher, who's with us in the crowd today, everybody. You guys can't see him. But he was... we're breaking the fourth wall consistently. But anyway, you know, he really connected me to other nonprofit leaders. It can be really lonely sometimes as an executive director, especially if you take the mindset that I have to do this on my own. I can't share the vulnerabilities of my organization. I have to compete with these other nonprofits. That really just truly, I don't think is a healthy way of operating as a leader in your community. And so Sid helping me to not only think about how to be a better and more strategic executive director, but connecting me to executive directors who know more than me, letting me hear in from their insights and thoughts, and just building that culture of community was really important for me. And Versademics, as a result, has grown so much in this past year and a half. By metrics, by impact, by community relationships. We're in every single regard, we have become better once we really leaned into that. And it's not that we neglected that willfully, it's just that first 4 or 5 years of our organization, we just really wanted to lean in to how do we make a difference in literacy? Like, what is our strategy? What is our approach? But once our bread and butter was ready for packaging, we needed to find someone to help deliver the package. You know, we needed to find who are these people that are going to help us become better at the other things. So we can make the bread, but who's going to teach us about the routes and the transportation and the partnerships and the marketing? And in a lot of ways, that's where Sid came in, that's where Sandy came in. And then as we expanded to different roles, thinking of like, what are the other opportunities in education where we can impact our scope and influence to a greater extent, that's when, you know, Watsi and Tara come in, and they have been there, and they have walked alongside us every step of the way. They have never been gatekeepers, and I just think, to Watsi's point, her leadership in thinking about community and thinking about being bridge builders instead of gatekeepers, that has bled into the rest of her organization. And I know that her leaders are always ready to come help Versademics. And we're thinking now about how can we become better at our middle school programming. Absolutely, because
we're excited about the opportunity to work with you all.
I know it too, and we're trying to bring that academic component for the literacy program as well. And like Watsi said, we all bring something to the table. And instead of trying to be a jack of all trades and master at none, how about we all become really good at what our niche is, and then share that with each other. So I think, just to your question, Sanji, since we have started collaborating more heavily, it has strengthened every facet of our organization.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
so good. So when speaking of bread, and
Yeah.
often in the nonprofit world where you have passionate people, but you need bread or finances, to fund often that mission. And often that's where they call or may call Sandy. So my next question is
the
for Sandy.
breadwinner, double entendre.
Yeah. So we could give the mic now to Sandy.
Absolutely.
And the question I have for Sandy is, when thinking about a group of nonprofits wanting to come together to pursue possibly a grant collectively, for your experience in the grant writing world, where has been some of the unique ways that you've found yourself growing and trying to discern what it looks like to go after a grant, a collective grant, as opposed to a solo grant for a solo nonprofit?
Okay. I think one of the biggest things that I've learned grant writing is that funders want to see collaboration. So one of the major questions they ask on an application are, who are your partners? Mm-hmm. Like, who are the people that you have engaged with the community to help your organization be better? So for some organizations who are a silo, that's a really hard question to answer. But if you are truly engaging with the community, you are working with the resources that are already there, which makes your organization better, then you can answer that question very easily. So collaboration, like this collaboration that has joined with the after-school programs coming together and saying, we want us all to rise to a high level. We want us all to be good in our academics. We want us all to be good with social emotional learning. We want us all to come together to help each other be better, to develop best practices. That's going to look really good on a grant application. And so funders are going to want to come alongside of that. They're going to want to support that, and they're going to want to see the impact that you're making as a result.
Absolutely, absolutely. So when thinking about trying to communicate impact and, some impact stories, one thing I love to hear every time we have one of you guys here on the podcast is, some impact stories. So we're about 8 months in to the year 2026, and I would love for, if everyone would like to share, you can, but what has been something that's happened within your nonprofit that's been very encouraging, an impact story for you as you go throughout, or even in the grant writing experience, an impact story this year for you?
What comes to mind immediately is actually not in the after-school space. It really has more to do with our reentry programming. We are gearing up for our first fundraiser around the reentry programming, and really looking hard at what is this programming produced over the last year and a half, outside of the data. And what we found is 4 amazing stories, but I won't tell them all today because that'll come in October. But even just the cross-referencing or the crosswalk between some of our program areas, where one of our reentry participants, who was a little further along in her reentry journey, in that she didn't need help finding a job. She was already and she had great family support, so that had helped. But she was already pursuing some additional education, and we were able to come alongside and help her with some of those educational expenses. But the issue she was having was that because of her criminal background, she wanted to have a home of her own, or an apartment of her own for herself and her son, but she couldn't get approved to live anywhere because of her criminal background. And we were able to work between our reentry programming and our housing programming to get her into credit counseling, to get her connected with city and state resources for home ownership down payment programs. And her very first place, if you will, beyond her parents' home for herself and her son, was her own townhome that she has purchased, through Koinonia Community Housing and our various partners in the housing, affordable home ownership development space. And that is just an amazing thing. And it has transformed, I think the trajectory for both she and her son. She lived in a different county that was a bit lower resourced, where schools had a little more challenges in terms of safety and academic offerings. She's been able to move into Pitt County. Her son is in a school that he loves, and he's getting some additional assistance for some of the needs that he has, as well as he's been able to be a part of our after school programming. So he's getting that additional, after school tutelage and social emotional learning and all that's happening in the after school space. And she is, pursuing her dreams to, become, to work in the healthcare field, et cetera. But that's just one impact story that has been huge for us, to just partner alongside families and really see them, move and access into, their full potential.
Oh, I love that. And it makes me think about how often, like, whomever you're serving, whatever need you're addressing may just be one of many others. Mm-hmm. So, you may have a child, a mother who has a child who wants to have them, in an after-school program while at the same time looking for housing. Mm-hmm. So that's another way that I've begun to see, like, collaboration across you guys and other nonprofits make sense.
Absolutely.
Caring for the whole of, whomever you're serving.
I think that was a really good point, Sanji. I think one thing that we, and both your points really, our work is cross-sectional. Like, if you think of a child who is going to school and is facing food insecurity or something like that, or anything really that could be affecting their educational performance, they're not dividing up. These are the things that I need to separate these things so I get what I need. In their mind, they're having challenges at school or a hard time at school because they can't get a full meal at breakfast, or it is because they're either themselves or their parents are going through a health crisis or a housing crisis, and all those things play a myriad of factors in affecting us. We are all, at the end of the day, we are people, and we don't have just one factor affecting us on a day-to-day basis. Children, relationships, work, whatever it might be. We're multidimensional as people, and so is our work, because we are trying to, at the end of the day, we're all trying to serve people through nonprofit work. So I think that's just a really strong point, that you have to have synergy across sectors. KCS is obviously thinking about what are the different things that we can do to affect individuals, and Versademics more so serving families. We also understand that we need partnerships with, like, the Community Food Bank of Central and Eastern North Carolina, because we need to meet food insecurity, and we need to make sure that we're working with Sandy to fund not just an academic initiative at times, but we're working right now on a resilience piece, because all these things are interconnected and play a role in how we treat and serve people. So, yeah.
If I could pick up on Brandon's point, I think that's the cross-sectionality of our work is something that, as nonprofit leaders, you just can't get away from. As Brandon said, people don't come, someone comes into, your office or comes into, your programming center, and they're bringing everything that they're being challenged with and looking for someone who can assist them. Several years ago, Koinonia Community Solutions, which we're actually then KCC Development Center, we had one central mission. It was after school programming. And that's basically what we did. And it was that recognizing that, we need to figure out a way, if we're, trying to build up youth, they have parents and, homes and challenges that perhaps we can address. And so our parent engagement programming grew out of, recognizing that there was a need there. And that parent engagement programming began informing, employment. Because in order to, we can assist, a young person to, get better grades, but at the end of the day, if they're hungry, or if, they don't have stable housing, or if mom and dad, maybe the real issue is needing just more income in the home, that can stabilize, not only the family, but that ultimately could assist with, the academics. So sort of seeing those interrelated needs is how we ended up moving into, second chance and barrier removing workforce development, and ultimately reentry, and then housing. So it grew out of, we started out very much just doing after school programming. And I don't mean to say just, because that's our after school programming still is about 2/3 of our work. And it is, that's a big piece. That's a big piece. It's in terms of staffing, because you really do need to maintain small ratios to really impact youth the way that you want to. So I don't mean to minimize that at all, because it is a big part of the work that we still do. However, those other areas grew out of our trying to meet the needs of youth and families.
I love that. That's why we're trying to become like y'all.
Well, Brandon, we are learning. I thank you for the kind comments and just being a great partner. But we are learning so much from you and from your work at Versademics. I'm really excited. Brandon and I have a mentor in common, a strategic thought partner in common, in Kim Breeden with the Anonymous Trust. Kim talks about Brandon nonstop. It's like, you got to meet Brandon. You got to meet Brandon. And so once I finally had a chance to start, getting to know Brandon and talk with him and, brainstorming some things and sharing, and he's sharing with us, and getting the opportunity to go back to Kim and say, Kim, guess who I, had an opportunity to, talk with today and bat some ideas around. He and Tara Poe, our education director, have been working together for some time as well. So it's, those cross relationships and opportunities to, you figure out you're kind of working with and knowing and admiring the same people and benefiting. And so it just makes collaboration natural.
Absolutely. So I've heard you mention now barriers and the many, different barriers that you guys come across as you're trying to do the work that you do. And you guys have now weathered, many, if you will, trials and tribulations in the work that you are going through. There's challenges constantly, that you're trying to overcome. So I guess one question I have for you guys to invite those who are listening in to the conversation is, where can people who are listening to what it is you're doing step in and help you take out whatever barriers you may be wanting to, overcome in your present?
Well, I'm going to pass this to Sandy.
Well, I'm going to do a shameless plug for Heart for ENC, because I think a lot of the barriers that people have in the nonprofit realm is they have a big heart, they have great ideas, but they don't know how to make it work. Right. And so I think for people to come to the events, the workshops, the sessions that Heart for ENC offers, especially board development, I think is a huge one. For the boards to understand what their role is in the nonprofit space, for what they're supposed to help the organization accomplish. And then also fundraising, grant writing, all of the opportunities that there are for learning how to run a nonprofit better are right here in the community. And so I would just highly recommend people take advantage of that.
Absolutely. Yeah, we Heart for ENC, one thing that as we're thinking about how to foster being more intentional about collaboration, is we're realizing that just bringing nonprofit leaders together to the table to become more aware of what's out there and how can there be kind of that cross collateral help, one to another. So I think awareness is key. And, that's one of the reasons why we even thought about kicking off this in the spotlight, to bring this awareness to, to the world, to Pitt County, but also to the world. And we super thankful for all that you guys are doing and the work that you're doing in the community, our community. So if there's, any way that anybody who's listening in wants to become, again, more involved, is there, could you guys share just really briefly on how they could do that with your nonprofit?
Just keep take turns. Once you already had turn. I also want to echo a lot of what Sandy said, and just put one extra layer on top of that, is that when you are working with Heart for ENC, you have access straight to the top. You got Sid Bratcher in the room watching the podcast. You got Sanji. But seriously, these are guys who are going to walk with you and pray with you, and whatever interpersonal or professional challenge that you're going through, they're going to help you through that. So I think they really embody that nonprofit spirit, that servant spirit. So I really do, to echo Sandy's point, really encourage you guys to come find Heart for E&C, come meet these great guys, and they're going to elevate you and just make you feel better. Get a warm cup of coffee with you on a Friday or something like that. So, Sanji, remind me the question. What was the question one more time?
Yeah, just, people, how could they get more involved with Versademics and
Yeah.
needs they could jump on with you?
Absolutely. So we are working really hard right now from advice from my council to make sure that more people know about where to find Versademics and things like that. So we're trying to be more robust on our social media. We have a website, of course, but a lot of ways that we are trying to connect and make sure that we're more well-known is partnering with our schools to make sure that we are talking to teachers. We were at Northwest Elementary last night in Belleville for their open houses, trying to get to as many open houses as we can. So we also serve a lot of the schools in the southern part of our county, pretty much all the Winterville schools, Wintergreen, Ridgewood, Creekside. But all that to say, I think we are trying to get more hands on the ground with the teachers. So hopefully at this point you should be able to talk to maybe your teacher or your principal if you're a parent watching, to try to make sure that you get connected with our work. But we're trying to be like Sid and Sanji, so if you just want to shoot us a message on social media, you'll personally hear from me or my wife or someone on my team to make sure that we can help you however we can. And we're just being more intentional about going to places that are typically underserved, like the northern part of the county. Like that typically does get underserved, especially when we think about after-school resources and educational resources in general. I used to teach there, and now we're being more intentional about extending there. And a lot of our foundation partners have made that possible. So we're excited about that. We're doing our part. But we can't cover all of the bases, and we want to make sure that we're an open door as people come find us as well. But I hope that answered your question a little bit. Yeah.
Definitely. Thank you for that question, Asunji. It's you do, as Sid and Heart for E&C teaches about, marketing and outreach and, being strategic about sharing your message and sharing your work. There's always someone else who's not heard of Koinonia Community Solutions or heard of the work that we are doing. And so you think you're doing your part, but, there's always, someone else that you can share the work with. So thank you for that. For that question. We can be found at Koinonia Solutions on all of the social platforms, Facebook. Catch up with us and see what we're up to. We try to be real robust in sharing the work that way. But also we invite the community to be bridge builders with us. That's the name of our volunteer program, whether it's coming in and working with our after school students or volunteering in our reentry programming. We have a great volunteer opportunity coming up called Level Up. It's our work readiness boot camp that will be happening on September 30th. It's an all hands on deck kind of day. So we need volunteers who will, come in and, check participants in or help serve lunch, or if they're those who have human resources backgrounds and wouldn't mind, helping a participant craft their resume or participating in mock interviews. That's a way that we, like to engage with community, engage with our partners around that activity. And it's happening on September 30th. We actually intentionally back that program up to the day before the Better Skills, Better Jobs, the award-winning Better Skills, Better Jobs, huge career fair that happens every fall at the convention center. Because many times we find that while there are lots of employers who want to meet great people in the community who are extending those sort of next level opportunities, many times individuals in the community, particularly those who may need sort of that extra hand, that extra support, may not on their own be ready for that opportunity. So we bring the community in with partners and help them with, interview skills, resume writing. We talk about, how to use AI in your job search, how not to use AI in your job search, as well as talk particularly for individuals who have, some gaps in employment or justice involvement history, how to talk about those things and how to address, those issues and navigate them in the employment space, such that people understand that, you're not precluded from your next opportunity. You just may need a little little support in how to get there. So that's one opportunity for the community to come in. We're also looking for folks who want to serve, perhaps who have nonprofit board experience, or who want to come and help on a fundraising committee, or want to come and help with strategic planning, or have that type of background. So the doors are open. We're looking for bridge builders and folks who can really help us expand and grow the mission.
Absolutely. Last question. You mentioned board, potential participation with a nonprofit. We do, which is one of the first times on the podcast we have a board member who's experienced being on a board. And just how would you invite or encourage people who may have been, thinking about jumping on a board, inviting them to actually go forward and do that?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest issues that nonprofits have is finding board members. Mm-hmm. And so I know there are a lot of people in the community who have the expertise and have the time to spend on a board, and they just need to get connected with the nonprofits to really help them do well. Mm-hmm. Because the nonprofit leaders are working hard trying to get the mission to go forward, and they need support in fundraising or in strategic planning, or in really helping the leader, the executive director, figure out which direction to go. And so I would really encourage people to get plugged in with Heart for E&C to figure out what organizations are out there, but then also to plug in and give your time and give your energy to help the organizations do better.
So good, so good. Well, thank y'all so much. Thank you so much for being here today, sharing your experience, sharing your voice. I think, for anyone listening, imagining what it could look like to collaborate more was, man, I'm hearing it, and that's what we're about. And I'm just trying to think how could we really multiply this, push this forward? So thank y'all so much for being on In the Spotlight podcast with us, and we're super thankful for all that you do in the community. So thank y'all so much.
Thank you, Asante.
Yes.
Yeah,
And thank Heart for E&C.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Man over there, too, yeah. That's that.
Awesome. Great.
You killed it. I did good. That's it.